Hi guys, welcome to a video that is dedicated to a rather boring subject but very practical and something that a lot of people who are watching it have probably touched on before in the past. GPS mounting. Now anyone who's built a quadcopter like a DJI F450 or well any frame based quadcopter that's running GPS will know that GPS is very important, and GPS has to be fixed in a certain orientation. You want to make sure it doesn't move, it doesn't vibrate, and ideally you want to get it out of the way of the electronics so there's no interference. The problem is with doing this is that by having it in standard format that a lot of the GPS manufacturers will give, especially for example DJI, there's no way of actually folding it down. And one of the popular mods on the market is to get yourself a little fold down GPS holder. Now that's all fine, there's loads of them available. I've got a choice selection of kind of GPS mounts that I've picked up over the years, and I thought I'll share them with you. A couple of them are fairly recent, a couple of them I've had for a while, and obviously one of them is actually the stock standard one. Why do we want to get a foldable GPS? Well, as you can see on the left here, I've actually got my my Immersion RC Zugong V2 Pro, a foldable quadcopter. Fantastic little unit, it's testing out really well, very happy with it, so much better than the V1 so far. But with its portability and its fold down, obviously what you don't want is a massive GPS stalk that gets in the way and you can't get out of the way at all. So I wanted to use a fold down GPS. Now some of the ones that I've got already were the one that was bundled with the NAZA itself, and that is a standard frame at the bottom with fixing points for screws. You then have a hollowed aluminium extrusion here. You are given a carbon fibre rod, rather long one. You're supposed to glue that in there, and finding the right sort of glue is always a bit of fun. You've then got at the other end a completely smooth aluminium extruded little puck. You put a little 3M sticker on top there, and then you mount it down like so. Now that's all fine. The problem is a lot of people have issues with this because gluing to this is not particularly easy. Even if you use something like epoxy, by the time you squeeze the tube in there, there's not a lot of wiggle room and it pushes a lot of it out, and if that breaks loose in flight, you're in trouble. The other problem with it, of course, is because it's such a long one, and you can cut it down, but because it's so long, it sticks up so far that when it comes to actually storing your 450, 550 or whatever frame you're doing, the problem is that you can't actually do it very easily. Likewise, a lot of people like to work on the bottom of a quadcopter. They like to be able to turn it upside down, and the GPS is always the thing that gets in the way and you end up wanting to take it off. So having a fold down option is really good. Now the first one that I am going to show you here, this is just the standard cheapo fold down one that I've been using for absolutely ages. I think it cost me about £5. They're so readily available these days. You can get them from eBay and places like that. They do the job, there's no arguing it. The carbon, a lot of them don't actually come with the carbon insert, but it's the same stuff as people like DJI give you. You also then get a aluminium plate. Again, not all of them will sell you this. The one problem that I found with the aluminium plate is that I wanted the ability to either remove it or at least adjust it so I could kind of swing the GPS around once this is in place. The problem is with this particular model is it's a threaded model, so you put it through a hole and then you bolt onto it. On my Zugong I actually bolt straight into one of the frame screws because it's a 2.5mm thread here. However, the problem is with that is that once you've actually got it all tight, then you could find that actually when you want your GPS facing this way, you find it's here. So actually what I did was I drilled a little hole in the side here of the top aluminium extrusion, and then I just tapped into it so I could put a bolt through. Obviously that bolt is ridiculously long and you wouldn't want to do that. However, that solved the problem. I then just use a standard no more nails or 3M tab on the top as per usual, and that gives me the ability to mount the GPS nicely. The only problem with something that's a bit cheap like this is that if I undo it, you'll see, hopefully you'll see, that this joint here, there's quite a bit of slop. There's a little ball bearing in there that holds it, but there's also a little screw here, this little brass screw here, and unfortunately that over time seems to just wear, the threads go. I've tried tightening it up, and it all just causes a bit of slop. When you tighten it down, it's not too bad, so that's all tight now, but you can see maybe there is a little bit of play, and the problem is with that is that all the way up here, that little play translates to a couple of millimeters, and having this moving around in flight is an undesirable thing. Not the end of the world with NASA, that it compensates quite well, but again, you want it as fixed as possible. So I reached out to see what other options were available from a couple of websites. Unfortunately, American guys, these are UK websites that I found these on. However, I'm sure you can find the equivalent elsewhere. This one in particular was from a place called Cool Toys, which I had never actually bought from before, but they delivered nice and quickly. And what this is, as you can see, it's a very long one. It's not a carbon rod, it's actually an aluminium rod. And you can see it's actually, if you compare the base of these two, it's much chunkier, much more substantial, a lot wider. Obviously, for the result of that, it's going to be a little bit heavier, and the fact it's using aluminium rather than carbon is going to be a bit heavier. It is a standard diameter for these, so you can actually swap it out for a carbon rod if you wanted to do that. However, the nice things about a design like this was actually nearly £15, which is a huge amount of money to be spending on something like this. However, the argument is, if it works and it keeps your quadcopter flying safe and it means you've got portability, you know, the argument is, if you've got 500 quid's worth of kit, 700, £1,000 worth of kit, you know, is £15 worth it? Yeah, it probably is, if the quality is alright. And this, it has to be said, is very good quality for what you get. Key features that are really nice are a little grub nut in here, so you've actually got the ability to screw this down. You've also then got a really nice chunky knurled aluminium. If I undo that, there's lots of thread, which means you can lock it nice and tight down. You've then got the same kind of setup. There's no ball bearing in this one, it's just a standard joint. However, there is still a little bit of slot, but because this is such a large unit and there's so much thread, when you actually lock it down, it is fixed absolutely firmly in place. The other thing that's nice is you've got four fixing points, exactly the same orientation as the DJI one, and also, a bit hard to see on here, once it focus, there is a thread in the bottom of it, so you can actually use a single fixing point if you want to, if you've only got a single hole to go through. Obviously, if you do that, you will find that it can rotate around, so just be a bit careful and use nylock if you want. The other thing that's actually quite nice about it, which I will demonstrate if I just take the top part off. So if I grab this and I just gently undo my grub nut, is that both ends of the aluminium, as you can see, have got a flat. And that means that when you actually put it in here, that the grub nut has got something to really bite onto, and that's a nice little feature, that, because one thing you definitely don't want happening if you're just using a grub nut is this rotating in flight. Rotation will take you down or fly you away, simple as that. So you want them both locked in, and again, it's the same on this end here. There's a little grub nut, and I won't take it off, but basically once you put that grub nut in, you've also got the flat on the aluminium there. So that's one option there. Like I say, this is available in multiple anodised colours as per usual. Obviously I bought red because I was probably going to be using it with my Zugol. I've already shown you the DJI option. Now this one here was a bit of a surprise to me. It is by a company that people will be familiar with, Taro, who make gimbals and frames and all sorts of stuff. Now, as you can see, this all came completely as one. It was already pre-mounted, pre-glued, so you've got an anodised black aluminium top frame here, you've got the carbon fibre, a nice length, I think personally, not too long, not too short, very well glued in, very well sealed in. This is all aluminium at the bottom, and as you can see, this is actually threaded. These two holes, they're actually threaded, and it comes with two nuts. Again, kind of hard to see. And you're looking at this and you're saying to yourself, well, hang on, are you going crazy here? That's not fold down, that's just a standard mount, it's just fairly small. Well, what's really nice about this one is, if you are using it on your frame, it's nice and solid, no problems there, but let's say you wanted to turn your frame upside down, you've got the hassle of having to undo the screws and everything there. What happens if we just do this? And as you can see, the beauty of this design is it's basically a bullet connector that plugs into the bottom, but what they've done, again, let me get my macro going, is you can see there's a flat there and there which mates up to the flat there and there, so rotation once it's in is impossible. And yes, it's friction fit, but of course, you know, you're not going to be having any forces that are going to be taking it upwards, and actually it's a pretty firm friction fit. And that was £3.89, I believe. And I have to admit, even though I spent £15 on this one here, I reckon I'm probably going to use this because it's going to sit very nicely in the centre of my Zugon frame. It means I can keep it there. It doesn't stick up much further than my VTX antenna, unless I swing that down. But if I did want to turn anything, you know, upside down, or if I wanted to just carry it about, all I got to do, pop it off. That comes loose, obviously a bit of flex in the cable, slide it sideways, and it just gives me the ability of doing it. So so there's a couple of options there. There's loads more out in the market. I would say, you know, obviously budget is one thing. You're never going to spend more than about £15 on one of these, and frankly, if you do spend £15, you'll probably be in a bit of pain. I am, and obviously the fact that I probably won't use it on the Zugong now is a bit of a shame. However, these really are a leap and a bound away from just the standard DJI option that you've got, because frankly, once you've dealt with the gluing of this, and again, if you're gluing it, use epoxy, don't use hot glue or anything like that, it will come loose. And once you've done with the gluing of this, and then you've mounted it up and you've made sure it's all okay, you're just going to find it a pain in the backside. You're going to knock it about, you know, you're going to snap it off if you're not careful. It was always an impractical design that DJI gave on these things, which is a bit of a shame. So anyway, that's the video on that. Like I say, I actually got this one here was from cooltoys.co.uk, and this one came from Make It Build It, again another company that I had never bought from. They've got a few bits of RC stuff, but at the moment they're stocking these, and being that it's Taro, I'm sure you can find these elsewhere in America, places like that, and I'm sure loads of Chinese companies are selling these out there. But I would say that this is really nice quality, this one. So if you do want something a bit taller, a bit more substantial, cooltoys.co.uk are a good option there. So just to demonstrate, the one that I've chosen to use on my Zugong is the Taro one. So there it is, all mounted up there. It fixes perfectly on the two holes that are already in the frame, because it uses the same kind of frame holes as the DJI method. All fixed on. I've wrapped the cable around so it's nice and tight. So if now I wanted to put that upside down, obviously I couldn't. However, all I've got to do, grab the base, pull it up, and job's a good one. I can now do whatever I want with it, and once it wants to go back in, there's only two ways round it can go. Obviously you'll need to make sure you don't put it the wrong way round, so it's facing backwards, but that's now in there, and as you can see, a really nice bit of design, well worthwhile grabbing, I would say. Obviously personal preference is going to be your choice on these things, but hopefully that just gives you an insight over a few of the options on how you can make a foldable mount.